What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today when I talk to you about Lucid, I want to go over some of the data points, break it down on what's really moving it, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So Lucid is pulling back slightly, 2.15%, 250 the low, 259 the high. During the pre-market, it was showing some signs of optimism, and that is because of the data that did come out. So we had ADP employment change and also GDP coming in better than anticipated. I do feel the ADP was somewhat skewed because the last report was extremely low. It was negative, in fact. So I think there's some numbers being crossed between the two, but still, even if you average it out between the 2 months, it is still relatively good. So a lot of stocks are moving higher because of that. Unfortunately, in cases such as Lucid, you are getting a dash of manipulation as per usual. So as far as today, 250 the low, 259 the high, 34 million shares being traded. So very low stuff. And this is something that's been occurring more and more with Lucid. It's just lower volume. So whenever you get low volume and you have a stock that is heavily shorted, that is kind of a recipe for disaster, unfortunately. So at the time of doing this video, shorts are increasing 2.71 million shares. 29.78% of the free float is being shorted. Works out to be 373 million shares. But it does get a little bit more interesting. As I've mentioned, this 2.71 is only net. That's after they trade back and forth. At the peak, first thing which killed the momentum, they were increasing 11.7 million shares. So again, given the lower volume, if shorts hit it hard and with that level of volume, no wonder Lucid goes down. So I know it does suck that I keep pretty much saying the same thing, but this is truly what is plaguing Lucid. Although I do disagree with a lot of the bears that Lucid is down and out, because we've seen with a good PR, such as the Uber deal, like Lucid can go up very fast just with a small amount. Well, I guess I wouldn't say small, but with capital getting in, it can easily just disregard shorts. Because keep in mind, during that Uber deal, when that was announced, shorts were increasing. I think it was like 7-8 million shares. Didn't do anything. So it goes to show that the ball's in Lucid's court. And I know I mentioned that a couple times in the past, but it is very true. So with that said, though, Lucid's upcoming earnings is a good opportunity for them to shine, reiterate their target, and potentially drop some hints or even some new catalysts to really move higher. Analysts, on a side note, I've been monitoring to see what they've been doing. There hasn't really been any changes to the earnings per share. So currently, of the 8 analysts that have given estimates, there is a consensus of negative 21 cents for the earnings per share. And then when it comes down to the revenue, 294.43 million. That's based on 11 analysts, and it did get lowered a little bit, and that was from 297. So not the best, but at the same time, lowering the bar, I guess, for Lucid is always a good thing. So 294.43 million. And of course, as I've mentioned in the past, analysts can change estimates without changing their ratings. So I'm sure some of these have been kind of moving things around based on a lot of the data that's been coming out. So let me know your viewpoint on that in the comments below. Aside from that, there hasn't been any news from Lucid today, no SEC filings or anything like that. So yesterday's news about them announcing their global brand ambassador is pretty good, if you ask me. Of course, as I always do, I like to play devil's advocate. I would ideally like to have had other individuals, more sports, but honestly, I think even based on the comments from my last video, a lot of people seem to be very hyped up about 𝗪𝗧𝗪. So round of applause to that. Aside from all of that, looking at the options, 469,000 in calls, 204,000 in puts, 51% of all the options being done are bearish in nature. And again, that's been something that's been happening ever since it did fail to get above that 330 range. So I think on a technical standpoint, with it hitting that 330, it kind of caused some consolidation, and then just shorts ran with that, started to spread a lot of fear and just cause it to go down. So it is rather unfortunate that big money still does anticipate a little bit more downside. Aside from that, though, from a bulls standpoint, you see a consensus for it to be roughly around that $3 range, and then the week of their earnings for it to be around that $4 range. And if it is $4, that would be a pretty good return on investment, if you ask me. And I think based on what Mark mentioned, there is some big announcements still going to be kind of mentioned from their earnings. So something to to keep in mind. Aside from all that, bears are anticipating for it to be sub 250 for this week, as well as between that 2 to 250 going into the week of their earnings. These are all the transactions occurring on the secondary market, so somewhat mixed, half buy, half sell, but like I said, just big money's not really getting involved, thus the lower volume. These are all the transactions on the dark pool. Dark pool is often enough used by shorts, as I always mention. So yeah, it's very low stuff even for that. Aside from all that though, with that 251 trading between this S2 and this S3, so 243 is going to be a strong support aside from that 250. So that's going to be more of a psychological one, as well as linked to options. So just kind of watch for both of those. And then 265 followed by 278 is going to be the next strong target / resistance points. And so it's kind of interesting how in a short time span, it literally bounced off of this R2, and now we're pretty much between this S2 and this S3. So things change very fast with Lucid. I'm sure a lot of you generally know that. So yeah, let me know your viewpoint on that complete polar opposite spectrum that it's been on. But aside from what analysts have been doing, there hasn't been any new analyst ratings, official ones of course, and no real articles kind of coming out. A lot of just Zach's ones just going over pretty much what I've covered already in this video. Aside from that though, on the actual chart, one key point to really watch for is that super trend and also that 50-day moving average. At the time of doing this video, Lucid is below that 200-day moving average. So best case scenario, it does close above that. So that is that 252. But like I said already, like the last couple of videos, Shorts' plan is to hit Lucid hard and break it on a technical standpoint. And that's one thing that they've been very consistent about. So I think their plan for today is to break it below that 200 for it to close there, and then potentially tomorrow and into the next couple of trading days, they will try at that 50. So their 50-day moving average is a very big deal for Lucid, as I've always brought up. But if there's a good piece of news that does come out, let's say Powell later today does kind of hint at a potential September cut, or even like looking at it, or even if he's optimistic about the labor data, that might be enough to really prompt some buying, because it is very oversold, Lucid and many other growth stocks, right? So a lot of stocks have actually consolidated over the last week and a half. So let me know your viewpoint on that in the comments below. Do you think that their upcoming numbers, which is going to be announced on Friday, potentially the next big catalyst for Lucid, is going to be good and be the saving grace and really push it higher? Or do you think that Lucid is just, it's all going to be downhill from here up until their earnings? What's your kind of general thoughts on all that? Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And then one final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point and bangers. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.